Hello, here in the Canvas and about to jump into the example problem number 5. This would be the second and final example problem for Module 2. You get through this and then we're going to go into then using your resource, Visual Basic Chapter 2 and 3. Okay, so that there's an ebook that kind of doing the same thing what we did in the last example problem 4 and 5, but a little bit more content involved. So I'm going to be dealing with 3 buttons during this process time and how you got the ending product in a Word document and you submitted the screenshots to me on a Word document. It's going to be the same approach with this finished product. So you're going to be sending me screenshots in a Word document. So I'm going to click in here and just review that. We're going to be reviewing the clear button, exit button, and you see print button here too. So I'm not going down a route to have you print, but if we were in the classroom, you would be using the print button to print your documents out. So moving forward, this is just talking about what we're going to get into, and I'm going to jump over to the resource page right now, the programmer resource page. I'm in there. I'm in Module 2. So you can see the example problem in the notes right here. So I'm going to right click and also open that as a new tab, which should put us here right here at the notes on the clear button, exit button, and print button. So you may have remembered that we had one line of code in the calculation button of those 2 numbers. Just going to be expanding on showing you some more features of how we can have multiple private subs. We only had one private sub, which was button 1, but now we're going to be having many more. Okay, so these notes are talking about the button controls. Generally speaking, that's this module. That's where our code is going to be housed. Our code will be housed in the buttons. But by all means, any control can really house code to complete a function on your program. So understand, as I scroll down and look at these 3 snapshots, you can see one private sub says BTN clear. Well, we're going to be getting into what's up with the 3 letters in front of the word clear. Well, the ebook gets into that. I'm presenting you to now. This helps the user to define in a short verbiage, a couple acronyms of what kind of control is it. Because like I said, if you had a text box and you wanted a text box to have some code in it, then you may write it, for example, TXT for text box. If you have a label, which we used, and you want your label to serve some sort of code, you might want to call that LBL. And so we're going to be getting into in the resource of the ebook, talking about how you're going to be changing this. Last program we had this private sub called button 1. Okay, I'm going to be taking steps that when we double click on that button, it's going to be called BTN clear, and that should help me out when I see that control there. Oh, that's the clear mechanism. Okay, so if I scroll down to the next, and you see this, and this is, and I'll get into this talking about this later, but this is I'm going at an example, 3 lines of code that'll clear a text box. Like during runtime, if you have data in the text box and you want to wipe everything out and start over. Okay, there is some controls that pretty much does that. All right, equal signs, quote, quote. What's inside the quote, quote right now? There is nothing. So if it reads that, it's going to put nothing inside the quote, quote. Going into the next private sub, you see BTN exit. Simple code here, and there's a few different methods of code that you can write to close the program. And what this is doing during runtime in a form, we can most certainly go up and hit the red X to close it down. But I'm also going to be making a button that says exit on it. Okay, we're not going to be doing this in virtual because there's additional power download power pack that would have to be installed on your computer, nor that I'm asking you guys to print. But if we were in the classroom, your computers would have this capability, and you would be printing it. And so it's a simple form, simple code that's called print form. It's actually telling it to print the form. That's the code right there, .print. And you can see we've called it BNT print. So we may kind of code it, we may try to put that property on there, but we probably won't put any code in it because it's meaningless in this virtual setting. And I talk about and it's a kind of a difficult task. I talk about right now below, which I'm going to skip over, the print and how to set up the print in the toolbox, but we're not going to be doing this in virtual. So if I scroll down, you can see there's a couple windows. We have to actually bring the print button form into the power pack in the toolbox. So I'm scrolling down now and simply jumping right into example problem 5. Okay, and once again, it's a 3-step process. Step 1 is going to be putting the controls in the form. Step 2 is renaming the controls on that form, changing the property. When I say renaming, changing the property, and here's a window of the properties. Here's a snapshot of a working form, and then 3 down below, you can see minimum code that we're going to be writing here. Okay, we're actually going to do this code right here, and then we're going to go back and change it. So we're going to see one variation and then another variation of the code. So if I scroll back up, I'm going to ask you all right here in a moment to go ahead and launch your Visual Studios program, and we're going to pick up there. Okay, now that I have my Visual Basic program open, I'm going to go ahead and initiate this and do a save as. I'm going file, and I think since this is called example problem 5, I'm just going to be consistent and just call it example 5 or example problem 5 with trying to save your program. You will notice my window form application is defaulted when it opens up, and I don't have to change anything. I'm going to go in the example window here real quick. Just type in the word example 5. All right. Notice my directory is pointing to module 2. I don't have to go and switch it out, so everything's pretty much standard. I'm going to go ahead and hit the OK button. But if you're not in module 2 and you haven't created module 2, go ahead and do that. So I'm going to hit the OK, and my program then is going to open up. Okay, now your program's finally loaded up like mine has. I can see my Solution Explorer. I can see my property window. My toolbox is not pinned up, and I'm going to pin it up now. I can just click there and hover it, click there and hover it there and have it there, but I'm going to pin it up. All right, for the practicality, I like to have my toolbox pinned up during step 1, which is putting the controls on the form, and then unpin it for step 2 and 3, which gives me a bigger window to deal with. So my commons I'm going to drop open. Now that my document's open, I'm not too sure what I have to what the example problem notes call on. So you might want to go to split screen so you can look at the notes and work with the program. I'm simply going to flop back and forth here on this. So you can see there's something on the title of the form, which I'm going to probably with you when I run this down. I'm going to go from the top of the form all the way down to the bottom, trying to go in this order of putting these controls on the form. So I know right now pay program should be the title of the program. So the form is selected right now. I haven't dragged any, and I want to change this form 1 to pay program. So I'm going to scroll all the way down to the text property of this form. Form 1's right here, and this property is dealing with this. Again, I noted with you an example problem last time that these properties, there are a lot of different properties in here. Okay, and so right now I'm getting a default of pay program. You can see it up there now. So we have that capability as well of going in here and renaming this form. Okay, notice how I told you on the code, it was public class form 1. Well, that's where this form 1's coming from. So I'm going to actually name this form 1 different too, but we cannot use spaces. right? So on this form 1 right here, I'm just going to back out form 1. I'm going to type in FRM. FRM is referencing form, okay? Form, FRM. And I'm just going to go pay program again. And so now I'm telling you I have renamed this form FRM pay program in reference to this. Now, you're not going to see this anywhere. This is dealing with behind the scenes and a part of the code. Okay, part of the code, all right? So that's the first step I've done. I went pay program in and went up to name property and called it FRM. Okay, the next thing I'm going to focus on is trying to strictly deal with the labels. I'm going to count them out. We have a label here, also like a title. So this is like some sort of program for a lawn service, Parker's Lawn Service, okay? 2, 3, 4, 5. I count a total of 5 labels. You can see what they are: hours worked, rate of pay, person's pay, and then I want you to put your first and last name on it. So let's go ahead and put 3 labels on there as I jump over there too, and I put a label 1, okay, I put a label 2, I put a label 3, I put a label 4, and then I put a label 5 down below. And so right now they're just everywhere, anywhere. So I'm not going to really try to center them in a place until I got them all typed in. So I'm going to pause the video here, go ahead and try to type them in. I'm going to get my typed in and then rearrange them a little bit. Okay, so I just quickly in the text field, I went in here and renamed. There was label 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and each of them, and down in the text, I went ahead and typed the proper value of what they are, looking at the example problem here over on this side. So now that we have all of them in, and this one again, type your own name, not mine. I want to move them around a little bit and try to get those blue so they're lining up with the blue. Now this is like going to be bigger too, but I can maybe line up the bottom label with the top label. Now, just like we did before, I'm going to go up here and click on this this title, and I'm going to make this bigger real quick. And I'm hitting this elliptical button, and it's going to bring up a font dialog box, which I'm going to go in there and just pick on a bigger font. I mean, if you want to go different type of font, bold, I think mine looks underline on the form. I'm going to go 14 and go okay. It's looking a little bigger. Okay, so we have something that says Lawn Parker. So I'm just going to click on the other ones and just simply try to increase the font. But let me show you something here real quick. What if I hold down the shift key and I highlight all 3 of these controls? And I'm going to try to highlight all 3 so they get some sort of highlighted. I can tell them right now they're highlighted because I see 1, 2, and 3. They're highlighted, just 3 of them. I could highlight all of the controls, but I just did 3. I'm going to go in here to see if I can't make one solid change, and I'm going to go with that different font. I'm going to go to 12. I'm going to go to bold. One solid change for all 3, and see if it'll take it. It took it. Right, so there is easier methods to trying to change the font around that you try to do, but you have to have them selected. Okay, so I got my name here. I got and I'm just going to take this form and decrease it a little bit, bring it up. Now I'm going to focus on going back to the controls, ladies and gentlemen, of the notes. I'm not going to focus on the 3 text boxes here. So if I go over to the text box, which is down at the bottom, I'm putting one text box in, doing another text box in, and then doing a 3rd text box in. So I now have 3 text boxes on this form. Okay, so I'm back at the example problem notes, and you can see how there's approximately 4 buttons. We're going to go ahead and put 4. Understand that we're not going to do anything with this print. Okay, we're just going to do it, put it there, and we're not going to do anything with it. Knowing that we're virtual, we're just going to program enter, clear, and the exit button. Okay, so I'm going to move back over to the website. This shouldn't be that difficult. You see the button right there. I'm going to put one button. I'm going to drop in another button, and I'm going to drop in a third button. Now, I can see how these buttons look a little small. I'm just going to spend the time to try to get on the handles of the corner of them and stretch them out, okay? And so by this time, let's do one more. Like I said, the print button, I'm going to put it down here in the corner a little bit, and I'm going to stretch it out just a hair so that it is. So I've come back over to the notes, and you can see enter, clear, exit, and print. So let's just quickly process that verbiage inside of those buttons. We may have to stretch those buttons out still. So one button at a time. We're going to go in the same places down to text where it says button 1. I'm going to go ahead and type in enter. Button 2, I think it might have been exit. Button 3 might have been print. No, button 3 was exit. No, clear, excuse me. And then maybe button 4 might have been print. And again, we're not going to program the print button. So I'm just going to click away. If didn't jive, I mean, okay. Is it important that you have these in this order? No, but just try to have them on your form. So if they're not really matching up with mine, it's fine. The bottom line is getting to getting this. I think we're kind of done with putting them on here. Now we're going to do something new with the buttons. And you can see how it's form 1 there. These 3 buttons are going to have code: enter, exit, and clear. All right, and so before I get to the enter button, which is going to be somewhat of the math, I'm going to talk about the exit and clear. Maybe I'll stick with the easiest one and work with clear with you first in terms of renaming that property in the name box. Okay, so let's go back over to the notes real quick so I could just review that. You can see I have some TXT, which I'm going to have to rename these text boxes too, but I'm starting with the buttons. And you can see down here, I have BTN, 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 BTN. And so all 4 buttons, I want to go ahead and try to go ahead and enter BTN enter, BTN clear, BTN exit, and BTN print for all 4 of these buttons. Okay, so if I go back to the program and I click on, let's just say clear here first. Okay, and I go into button 3. I know this got to be BTN capital C clear, okay, because that's what it's going to be doing, and this is the method that I'm going to be having define the property in the code. If I had button 1, 2, 3 show up in the code, you may get yourself confused. Well, is button 1 the enter button, or is button 1 dealing with the clear button? All right, so this is going to help us out in those private subs. But go to the exit button and delete button 2. I'm going to type in BTN exit. Now, there's no spaces. You cannot have any spaces when naming these properties. Now, when you're doing labels and putting information in the text, for example, you can have spaces, all right? I'm going to go to enter key. I'm going to quickly type in lowercase BTN followed by enter, all right? So we got a space there, enter. And let's do the same thing with print. If I go BTN print, all right, and so now we've gotten these controls, these 3 buttons with the proper name, and if you want to click over there, just confirm enter, exit, clear, and BTN print. Okay, I've come back over to the notes. I'm now going to work with you on these last 3 text boxes. All right, last class period when we did example 4, we had 3 text boxes and we did not go into the name property and switch those names out. We left them in the code and we used them in the code calling, if you remember, text box 1, text box 2, and text box 3. And as a user, that can be sometimes difficult because you may not know what the text box 2 is referred to as, or text box 1. By going in here and renaming these text box and then writing the formula for these, it makes life a little bit easier because you can identify what the proper verbiage is for the code because you're using English language words. In this case, we see TXT hours worked, TXT rate, and TXT pay. So let's come over to the program, and I may have already entered them in, and you click on that first text box there. That first text box should be called TXT hours worked, okay? And that's referencing what the label is and what this text box is going to be. I worked, okay? 25 hours this week, okay? So hours worked. Going on the second text box, it was called text box 2. I've renamed it to TXT rate. You can see rate of pay, TXT rate, okay? So how much you're getting paid an hour. 10 bucks, 15 bucks, 20 bucks an hour, okay? So that's your rate. I'm just making it simple with rate. And finally, the last text box should be your output, which will going to be the person's pay, all right? And so this instance, you see person's pay. I'm just going to be coming over here, text box 3, and renamed it to TXT pay. So we may be about done with the properties. After we get this program all said and done, I'm going to come back and do some additional tweaking in this step 2 to do a couple more things to these text boxes to show you some things. But at this time, I think we've done step 1 and 2, and you may find yourselves flopping back and forth between like putting the labels in, changing it, putting the verbiage. So it's common that people do go back and forth from step 1 and 2, but I think at this form somewhat mirrors the example form, okay? So at this time, we're ready to go on to step 3, which will then be the coding. Once again, there's many ways you can bring in the code to the program tab for the code. Right now, you just see in the form. I went ahead and also pinned up my toolbox. You can see here, I'm pinning it down. That'll give me more room. I think one of the easiest ways is to click on one of these buttons. The buttons are going to be, there's going to be 1 private sub, 2 private sub, and 3 private subs. So I'm just going to start with the clear button, and I'm going to double click that button, and it's going to bring in the code. As you can see here, my code is loaded up, and let me just going to try to draw some spaces, return, so I can separate a little bit. Look it up at the code here where it says FRM Pay Program, okay? You cannot try to rename it here. If you want to go back and rename it, or you think you misspelt it, you can't do it here. Going back to example problem 4, we didn't rename that form. That form was kept at form 1, and we saw public class form 1 here. By us going over to the form here and scrolling up to the name property and calling it the FRM Pay Program, that allows this code, the whole program of this public class, this whole form. Okay, this whole public class is dealing with this whole form. It allows us also to have some sort of form pay program visible there. Again, your program will have errors, and I said this before. If you somehow delete this line item of the end class or delete public class, because this is the perfect key words here in this program. Okay, now we double clicked on the clear button, where I double clicked on the clear button, and now brought in a line item of the private sub, strictly dealing with that button. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the form to show you something. If I hit return right here, and I have my cursor right there, and I just go ahead and hit the exit button next, and double click the exit button, look what's happened. I'm gonna hit return out of this sub. It'll come down a little bit. I now have an exit private sub for the exit. So this is the button, and for the clear, this is the button for the exit. So if I go back to the form and I then double click on the enter button, it takes me back to the code, and then this is the structure for the enter button. So I now have the 3 button controls, private subs in here, ready to code, so they have some code lines inside the button. But before I do that, I want to quickly go to the website and capture the flower box, okay? Like I said before, I may not always have a visible link inside the notes for the flower box. You can also get the flower box in the objective right here. It's the last line I'm in, and I'll usually all have them right there in the objective. So I'm going to go open new real quick and take in the steps with you. I'm going to highlight the yellow box of the flower box, which is basically your header. I'm going to back to the code, and then I'm going to right click, okay? So I'm going to pause here, go ahead and put example problem 4, your first and last name, example problem 4, the date, and call this a pay program, okay? So go ahead, and I'm going to stop, and you guys go ahead and do that. Okay, so now you can see I've entered the information in the flyer box. Again, go ahead and have your date, the date. I'm going to go back to the notes, and I'm going to talk about the exit and the clear button real quick again, and have you guys work with me on that. So I'm going to close out the flyer box. I'm going to scroll up because the code to that is going to be was part of the opening message. So I want you right now to just type in me.close. Simple close, that'll exit the program. So if I go back to the program, right between the private sub and the N, I'm going to type in me dot close, and I push enter. So that's basically will exit the program during runtime. That is the command. I think there may be something that says exit as well. May work, but there's several type of methods that you can, the program will interpret to close the program. So I'm going back to the notes again and simply quickly talking about this. We have 3 text boxes that I want to clear out. I want to clear them during runtime, to process another payment. And you can see we've created a txtpay.text. That was the output line, where the first text box was txt hourswork.text equals quote quote, and then the third one was txt rate.text. So we're using quotes, okay, because there's nothing in them. We're going to see something in the future. If we put text in between those quotes, that text will show up. We've already experienced that with the console.write. We had text inside quotes. There's no quotes here, so that's a form of trying to clear any of the content out within the cell during runtime. So if I go back to the code and I start typing txt, and I see pay. Look at this telesense. Hours worked. Look at this telesense. And if I hit the tab button equals quote quote, one thing I'm missing was that dot text. Okay, excuse me. All right. So if you go back in there and type it effectively, if I hold that line and I hit enter one time, you should be able to see something that looks like this. Okay. So if I type the next one, txt, and I see, I'm going to go with rate. I'm going to try to keep these in order. It doesn't matter. Tab dot text equals quote quote return. All right. Once again, we can see a method that will clear the data inside it because there's nothing between the quotation marks. And finally, txt, I think it was pay. I'm going to go to that middle one. Tab dot text equals quote quote. So look at the difference. I did have a lowercase. Now it fixed it itself. I purposely typed the first text box in lowercase t, and I was wondering why didn't it switch it. It did switch after I did a click. It automatically, there's some sense of autocorrect that the program will do when you know you have the control typed right, but it may be in lowercase, which it was in this, brings it to uppercase. So these are 3 different, we can do this with labels too, okay? We can most certainly, and maybe we'll experience that by taking your name and adding your middle initial to your name when you hit the button, or when the buttons click. We can go back and do something crazy, okay? So at this time, we've gotten the control for the clear and the code, the code which is clearing the controls, and the code for the exit button. Now I'm going to go back to notes and start talking to you guys about the enter button. I am now scrolling back down to the bottom of the web page, part of step 3. I'm providing you this code to you now. Don't get me wrong, part of my code here, and you can see private sub button 1, okay? And part of this, putting this example problem 1, it should read like what we have done. It should read BTN pay, okay? So I'm just guiding you through this. It should read BTN pay. It doesn't, and it looks like it's 2 lines here, but it's dropped down. This private sub is somewhat a 2-line effect. So what we got here is, as I dissect this, we have the pay text box, txt pay is equal to hours worked times the TXT rate. Now, going back to the value function, okay, again, I've given you the definition right here of that value function. Is defined as a returns the number contained in a string as a numeric value of appropriate type. Note the use of the value function in this code for this example problem, okay? So it presets a string function. For example, you're giving a value which is used to convert a string into a value, okay? So some sense you're wrapping that function in parentheses, all right? So it's needed to multiply those two cells there. So I'm going to pause, ask you to do your best to type this, and I'll come back and see how you guys done shortly. Okay, I'm back over here on the code, and I went ahead and typed this in advance. This is what you guys should be entering in, okay? So I did have some red squiggly as I was typing, and you would automatically start seeing a red squiggly until you get through potentially the whole line of code, okay? Because the program is constantly reading your line of code and checking to see if you don't have any errors. And most certainly people not done typing a line, they're not going to be complete. So you very well will see red squiggly show up as you are processing this. But you can see you have two text boxes that are multiplying that equals pay. So I am now going to go forward, pause this video if you're not there yet. I'm going to go forward and run the program at this particular time. Okay, now that the program is running for me and it populated up, I'm just going to go ahead and type a simple number. If I get paid, excuse me, if I work 10 hours and I get paid $10 an hour, I would think that should be, now you can click inside this, but I also believe the tab button will also works, okay? You can see how this tab scrolls around to even the button. So at times I use the tab button, or you can click to the next cell. So, but I'm going to use 10, so two numbers, 10 and 10. I'm just testing out the program right now, and I'm going to hit enter. Wow, that is obviously the right number. Okay, I'm now going to go see if the clear mechanism works. Wow, my clear button is working. Now I'm going to see if this exit button works. I'm going to hit the exit button, which should close the program. My program now closes. Okay, so a lot of times you have to go through these tests, and when you click a button, your program may have errors, and I've seen this common, and that's called runtime errors. And if you remember part of the notes, we have syntax error, logic error, and runtime error. Okay, runtime error, the program seems to be correct, but somehow there's some math or logic wrong with it during the runtime. So the program work effectively. Now we're going to enhance the output because it just gave us $100. Okay, I want to try to put a decimal. I want to try to put a currency with that output. So I'm going to flop this. I'm now going to flop this back over to the notes. Okay, now that I've come back over to the notes again, you can see example 5B. We're not going to be creating a new program. I just wanted to go a 5B and take it a little further with a better code structure is the bottom line here, because this is going to give us a currency. So if I just indulge in looking at these notes here, we have something that says pay, dim pay as decimal. So we're declaring a variable as pay, all right? So kind of going what we learned in module 1 by declaring a variable, we're using decimal because we want the pay to have decimal as like currency, okay? And so we're actually going to switch out the text box that was txt pay.text as the equal sign and move that to the pay, bring the pay down below. So now pay as the variable is holding the value of these two text boxes that are getting multiplied by each other. And then so the output, we then are using the text box pay to be equal, the txt pay to be equal to that variable, and this is how we convert it to the currency. So let's go ahead and flop us over to the program. You don't have to rewrite this line here in the middle. Just add a line above and below, and I'll show you that technique for a second. So if I am right here, I don't want to delete this line, okay? So I'm just going to hit return. I'm putting a space in above and below. And so as we know, as dim pay as string, all right, screwing that string, but decimal, my bad. we're now going to use pay down below. So I'm simply going to take pay, delete this word right here, and just type in pay. All right, so I'm still keeping that same structure that you already wrote. I'm just manipulating it a little bit, which then leads us into the third line by me typing pay txt pay.text equals the variable that we created pay, and I'm going to use the telesense here, dot to string, and I'm going to wrap it with the C. If you guys remember that C was for currency. Okay. Let's see if we can't run the program once you get done with this 3 lines of code and switching it up. Okay, I've launched the program again a second time, running a second time after we have changed the output line. I'm just going to stick with the same number. If I get work 10 hours, get paid 10 bucks an hour, and I'm now going to hit the enter key, and now look at our output. Our output is representing more on the lines of currency. Now, I'm okay. That's great. We've already know it to clear, and we hit clear, and it clears it out when to exit. Now, I'm now going to take a step further, go back and change some of these properties name, because sometimes you can lock some of these controls down. For example, I go 10 and 10 and go and hit enter. Look at my mouse. I can take my mouse in there and hit the delete button, and I can delete that. So sometimes a trick is to lock down some of these controls where you cannot manipulate the output. So I'm going to go ahead and stop, asking you to stop, and get yourself back over to the form. Okay, I'm not here to show you a little bit things you can do to enhance the program. You ever been times where you're trying to lock the total box? Right now, I've gone up, and I'm asking you to go up and find with the text box that is the pay, txt pay, try to find read only. Okay, read only is going to probably be set at false. Go over to the arrow and find the read only and change it to true. And what's that going to do is it's going to prohibit you from users going in there and trying to delete the output. Okay. The other thing, a couple other things I've done, go over to your name at the bottom. And if you scroll up and you can see the name property, it was label 5. Go in there and change that to LBL name, because you're like, if I really wanted to, I could go into all of these labels, LBL hours work, LBL rate, LBL pay, but I'm just using one, which is one label here, and I've changed it to LBL name. Now, in addition with that selection, go down here, and it's defaulted to true. Change that visible to false. And so what that's going to do is during the runtime of this form, that label is going to not be seen. Okay. Now, one more step, if you can go over to the code and look at this line of code I've added to the bottom of the BTN private sub BTM. It should have ended with txt pay. Hit enter once and go ahead and add in LBL.visible equals true. Okay, and so what we're going to do when you click that button and say enter for the multiplication, not only is going to give you $100 or whatever the amount you put in. Okay, I'm just playing it easy with 100. It's then going to project that label to be visible. So the label visible equal to true. Now, most certainly we can have it false, but it's already false. So I just wanted to have visible when you get it into runtime. So I'm going over to the program. I'm going to start the program. The program will load up. I'm going to just simply hit 10 and hit 10 again and hit enter. Now, if I try to hover over that $100 and hit my delete button, I can't erase that because we did a read only. And at the same time, you saw your name appear. So if, simple as that. So I think by now we've taken the ball a little further. We started with a simple program adding 2 numbers in example problem 4. We've now gone to example problem 5. Did a little bit more rigorous, have more buttons. You can see this. I'm concluding that we're not doing anything with this print button just because I'm not asking you to print, so I'm not worried about trying to code this button to print. If we were in the classroom, I'd be working through you guys how to print this write the code for this print button. So I'm now going to conclude with you guys trying to wrap it up by doing screenshots and dumping your screenshots into a Word program. Okay, I'm back over here in the notes, just reviewing. The directions have been somewhat the same. I'm asking you, we're looking to load up a Word document. You can see and try to call this example problem 5 followed by your first and last name. So I have a Word document opened up. I simply put my name. I've labeled it example 5 code, example 5 form. All right, I'm going to file. I haven't got the images yet, but I'm just going to file save as, and I'm going into the module 2. That's where I should be pointing to. So if you're not there, I'm in programming. You go in module, programming, and look in module 2. Okay, I think I may have already saved it. Okay, you see example 5. Okay, first and last name. Okay, and hit the save button. All right, so I'm going to go right now. Once quick. I had this document open. It's still running on me. Okay, I'm just going to minimize this. I had this document over. I'm going to go to the snippet program. I'm starting with the form. Okay, I'm going to copy this form. I'm going to copy it on the snippet tool, copy it, go over to the Word program and write down below. Now, what's cool about this, again, I can decrease a little bit, but I have my name on it. Your name should be on this form. When you're building this form, the purpose of me identifying it's you by you having your name on the form. Okay, so if I go back over to the program and I stop, I'm just going to stop the program. I've already captured it. I go back over to the code. I need to get the code, and I've looked at my code, and it's kind of large. I can't see it. I mean, I can most certainly try to clean it up a little bit, take out some of these extra spaces so I can get everything on the screen, and sometimes it's just too much. Okay, once again, I'm going to go up to the option menu. I'm going to come down to font and color. I'm not too sure what currently my font is. It's at 12, so I'm going to take it down a little, maybe down to 10. All right, and I'm going to go OK. And so this should decrease my font size a little bit, and so I can then crop everything. And when that opens up, I'm going to hit the snippet tool again, and I'm going to try to snippet everything from the tab down, trying to get to the end class, which is perfectly fine right there. I'm saving it. I'm going to the Word document right below the code. I don't know if I copied or not. I'm going to go copy, go to the Word document. I'm going to now paste it right in here. And if you have to decrease a little bit, you can. So this is, for me, it's a one-page Word document. All right, so I'm going to hit save again, because I sometimes have people saving it, bringing in a picture, and then uploading it, and they don't have the image on there, because you got to remember that the last step I did was I pasted. All right, good practice for me is that if I close this Word document out, okay, and close it out, it's got to be saved. Okay, so at this time, I'm asking you guys can go back over to module number 2 of this example problem and try to find the submit button and submit this problem in the example problem 5 basic payroll program to complete this example problem. This is a participation grade.